The moment the heavy metal latch of your front door clicks into place, a physical wave of decompression washes over your entire body, as if you have been holding your breath for 8 hours straight. It is not merely the act of arriving, it is the profound, biological signal that the performance is finally over, and the heavy mask can be peeled away from your exhausted skin. Outside, the city continues its relentless, cacophonous march, with screeching tires and overlapping conversations. But, inside this sanctuary, the air is still, smelling faintly of old books and the lavender detergent you use to wash the blankets that shield you. You lean your forehead against the cool wood of the door, closing your eyes as the hypervigilance that governs your muscles slowly begins to dissolve, allowing your shoulders to drop away from your ears. Is it not strange how this silence feels louder and more substantial than any noise the world could ever produce? You are standing in the hallway of your own life, suspended in that fragile twilight between the demands of the day and the solitude of the night, wondering why the simple act of existing in public feels like navigating a battlefield without armor. This isn't about laziness, nor is it a simple preference for solitude. It is a desperate, silent negotiation for safety in a world that feels aggressively unpredictable. Have you ever wondered why your chest tightens the moment your phone rings? Or why the cancellation of a plan brings a rush of euphoria that is almost intoxicating? We often tell ourselves that we just prefer the quiet, but perhaps there is a deeper, hidden narrative written in the wiring of your nervous system. You are not hiding because you dislike the world. You are retreating because you feel it too deeply, and your sanctuary has become the only place where your heartbeat finally slows down. At 32, your life has become a meticulously curated exhibition of controlled variables, designed to minimize the friction of the unexpected. The moment you enter your living space, the ritual begins with surgical precision. The harsh overhead big light is strictly forbidden, replaced immediately by the amber glow of floor lamps that mimic a perpetual soothing sunset. You trade the rigid fabric of street clothes for soft, worn cotton that doesn't pinch or bind, treating your skin as if it were recovering from a severe burn. Your apartment is clean but deeply lived in, filled with objects that have specific, unchangeable places. Not out of obsession, but because knowing exactly where your keys are reduces the microdoses of cortisol you experience daily. You brew tea not just for the taste, but for the predictability of the ceramic heat in your hands, a grounding anchor in a reality that often feels like it is spinning far too fast. There is a subtle, invisible wound that manifests in the way you interact with the window glass. You look out at the street below, not with disdain, but with a longing that you bury under layers of defensive relief. You watch groups of friends laughing at the corner bar, and while a part of you aches for that easy camaraderie, the rest of you recoils at the imaginary energy cost of joining them. You are a scholar of human behavior, noticing the slight twitch in a colleague's eye, or the shift in tone that others miss. A superpower of observation that leaves you utterly drained by the late afternoon. This hyperempathy means you aren't just living your own life. You are constantly metabolizing the emotions of everyone around you. Your solitude isn't a rejection of humanity. It is the only way you know how to wring out the sponge of your psyche after soaking up the world's chaotic emotional spill. Your environment reflects a nervous system that is perpetually recovering from the phantom wars of a chaotic past or a stressful day. The hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic ticking of a wall clock are the only allowed intruders in this soundscape, providing a white noise that soothes the jagged edges of your racing thoughts. When a siren wails outside, you don't just hear it. Your muscles tense involuntarily, a remnant of a time when loud noises meant imminent danger, forcing you to pause whatever you are doing until the threat passes. You have built a cocoon of soft textures and predictable outcomes, a fortress where you are the benevolent dictator of your own sensory experience. This domestic stillness is not empty. It is heavy with the effort it takes to feel safe, proving that for you, peace is not a given state of nature, but a construct you must rebuild every single evening. You tell yourself that staying in is a choice, a badge of honor for the introverted soul. But deep down, you recognize the compulsion driving the decision. Consider the moment a friend texts to cancel plans you made weeks ago. The wave of relief is so profound it feels pharmacological, like a sedative hitting your bloodstream. But immediately following that high comes a hollow ache, a quiet realization that your world is shrinking by your own design. You stare at your phone, typing a gracious reply, "No worries, let's reschedule," while your body physically unclenches, grateful to avoid the performance of social interaction. This isn't about hating your friends. It is about the crushing weight of the pre-game anxiety that starts days before the actual event. You are hoarding your energy like a scarce resource, terrified that one social misstep will bankrupt your emotional reserves entirely. This need for containment didn't start with adulthood. It is an ancient architecture built on the bedrock of your childhood memories. Perhaps you grew up in a home where the emotional weather was volatile, where the slam of a door or the tone of a voice shifted from safety to danger in a split second. You learned early on that your bedroom was the only territory you could govern, the only place where you wouldn't be scrutinized or ambushed by someone else's chaos. The habit of making yourself small and invisible was a survival strategy that saved you then. But now, it has calcified into a prison. You catch yourself walking softly in your own hallway, even when you are alone, a ghost in your own life, perpetually trying not to disturb a peace that no one is threatening anymore. Your body remembers the war even in times of peace. When you do venture out, the cost of wearing the mask of normalcy is exorbitant, draining your battery faster than you can recharge it. A simple trip to the grocery store becomes a tactical mission. The fluorescent lights hum with an aggressive frequency that makes your eyes ache, and the overlapping chatter of strangers feels like physical static in your brain. You find yourself rehearsing simple interactions, scripting your thank you and have a good day to ensure you sound human enough to pass undetected. By the time you return to your car, your hands are shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer exertion of filtering out the sensory assault. You sit in the driver's seat for 10 minutes before starting the engine, staring at the steering wheel, wondering why basic functioning seems to come so effortlessly to everyone else while you require a recovery period just for existing. As the days bleed into weeks of self-imposed confinement, the silence you once craved begins to mutate into something heavier, something that presses against your chest. The safety of your home starts to feel less like a warm embrace and more like a waiting room for a life that hasn't quite started yet. You busy yourself with domestic distractions, reorganizing bookshelves, binge-watching series that numb the mind, to drown out the gnawing suspicion that you are hiding, not living. You look at the front door and see it not just as a barrier against the world, but as a dam holding back the river of potential experiences you are too afraid to touch. The tragic irony settles in. The walls you built to keep the pain out are now effectively keeping the joy out, leaving you safe, untouched, and perfectly devastatingly alone. It is on a quiet Friday evening, the kind you used to fantasize about, that the comfort of your sanctuary suddenly curdles into a suffocating dread. You have successfully canceled your plans, locked the door, and dimmed the lights. Yet instead of relief, you feel a terrifying tightness in your throat that no amount of herbal tea can soothe. You look around your perfectly controlled environment and realize that the silence is no longer peaceful. It is deafening, amplifying the echo of your own isolation until it sounds like a scream. You stand before the hallway mirror, looking at your reflection, and for the first time, you do not see a person who is resting. You see a person who is hiding. The walls you meticulously constructed to keep the chaos out have grown so thick that they are now blocking the air, leaving you gasping in the vacuum of your own safety. This is the brutal, blinding paradox of your existence. The very mechanism you built to survive is now slowly killing your spirit. You realize with a jolt of nausea that you aren't staying home because you love your space, but because you are terrified of the variables you cannot control out there. You have treated your life like a museum exhibit, kept behind velvet ropes and glass cases to prevent damage, but in doing so, you have ensured that nothing real ever touches you. You wanted to avoid the pain of rejection, the exhaustion of noise, and the risk of failure, but the price you paid was the erasure of serendipity, connection, and spontaneity. You are safe, yes, entirely and perfectly safe, but you are also starving to death while sitting at a table set for one, waiting for a nourishment that you refuse to go out and find. The tears that finally come are not born of sadness, but of a fierce, hot frustration at the trap you have set for yourself. You sink to the floor, leaning against the sofa, and let the facade of the happy homebody crumble completely, feeling the raw, unvarnished truth burn through your veins. You acknowledge that your hypervigilance, once a necessary guardian against a volatile childhood or a harsh world, has become a jailer that keeps you in solitary confinement. It is a terrifying clarity. The danger is no longer the unpredictable world outside your window, but the stagnation festering within. these four walls. You understand now that avoiding the possibility of being hurt has made it impossible for you to be healed, and that the numbness of this controlled existence is far more lethal than the sharpest pain the world could ever inflict upon you. The storm inside you subsides, leaving behind a clarity that feels heavy and wet, like the earth after a torrential rain. You do not rush to unlock the door or make grand proclamations of radical change. Instead, you simply sit there, allowing the weight of the truth to settle into your bones without fighting it. The room looks the same, the amber light, the soft textures, but the illusion of it being a fortress has evaporated, revealing it for what it is, a waiting room. You realize that your nervous system has been stuck in a loop of outdated software, treating a dinner invitation like a saber-toothed tiger and a crowded room like a burning building. It is a moment of profound compassion for yourself, understanding that you were never broken, just fiercely protected by a part of you that didn't know the war was over. You begin to view your exhaustion not as a personal failure, but as the steep tax paid by a sentinel who has been on duty for decades without relief. All those cancelled plans and lonely nights were not acts of selfishness. They were desperate attempts to regulate a body that felt perpetually unsafe in an unpredictable world. You forgive the younger version of yourself who learned to equate silence with survival, recognizing that they did the best they could with the limited tools they had at the time. This isn't about killing the part of you that needs a sanctuary. It is about gently teaching that terrified part of you that the danger has passed. You sit with this new knowledge, feeling the sharp edge of shame evaporate, replaced by a quiet, tender grief for the years you spent guarding an empty castle against enemies that no longer exist. The solution, you realize, is not to burn down the sanctuary or force yourself into chaotic noise, but to slowly, deliberately expand the perimeter of what feels safe. You understand now that true safety is not the absence of external threat, but the presence of internal trust in your own ability to handle discomfort. You don't need to become an extrovert or a thrill seeker. You simply need to learn how to carry this sense of home within your own ribcage, taking it with you wherever you go. You look at the window again, and for the first time, the glass seems less like a barrier and more like a membrane, permeable and inviting. You are ready to stop surviving the world and start inhabiting it, knowing that you can always return here, not to hide, but to rest. You stand up and walk toward the door, your hand hovering over the cold metal of the handle, no longer trembling with the anticipation of an invisible threat. This is not a victory march into the noise of the city, but a quiet, deliberate reclamation of your own agency, a whisper that says you are finally ready to participate in the messy, beautiful imperfection of being alive. You realize that your sensitivity is not a fatal flaw that needs to be bricked up behind concrete walls. It is a rare and delicate instrument that allows you to perceive the world in high definition. To heal is not to become hard or indifferent. It is to learn how to remain soft without breaking, trusting that you possess the internal resilience to weather the inevitable storms without drowning in them. You are the keeper of the gate, not the prisoner within it. As you turn the lock, the sound is a release rather than a sealing, a small click that echoes the opening of a cage you built with your own hands. You step outside, and for the first time in years, the air feels like oxygen rather than an assault, carrying the scent of rain and the distant, rhythmic hum of life moving forward. You will always need your sanctuary, your quiet corner of the universe where the lights are dim and the world is still. But now it will be a place of restoration, not a place of hiding. The world is loud, yes, but it is also filled with music that you deserve to hear. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the night air. Your home must be the place where you recharge your energy, never again the place where you bury your light.